All right. Welcome back. This is the Front Row Podcast with Coach Mark Gottfried, and today I am really excited because I've got a guy that I've known for a lot of years. I'm extremely proud of this guy, and he's had just a great career. But I have the 7-time NBA world champ, Robert Horry. How about that? How you doing, Robert?
I'm good, Mark. How are you, man?
I'm wonderful. By the way, how does that sound when people say that? 7-time. I know it has to still, even though it's been a while and years are, they're mounting since the last one, it's still 7. And when people say that to you, that's got to feel pretty good.
It feels great, man. And I also let them know by having my IG, Robert Horry 7X, let them know. But, for me, you know how it is. Anytime you win a championship in any sport, on any level, it's a great feeling. For me, when you get to the highest level, like the NBA, and you win 7, man, it's unbelievable.
I was at UCLA back in '95. We won a national championship, and I was 32 years old. And in my mind, I'm saying, "Oh, this is going to happen. I'm gonna do this a number of times throughout my career." Like, you're thinking, okay, and then you realize as you get going how hard it is to win. And so for you, even after the first one, did you feel, okay, there's more to come, or what were you thinking?
It's so funny. I was just listening to Sam Cassell the other day. He was talking about, we won the first championship together in '94, and he was talking about how guys were crying, and he didn't really understand it. And I never got to that point where, I was crying because think about it, I wanted my second season in the NBA. And those guys, when I first got to the Rockets, they had been battling for 10, 12 plus years, trying to win the championship. Dream had been there, got beat by the Celtics. And for me, it was just, it was like one of those moments of out-of-body experience, because I didn't even touch the trophy in '94, because I was in awe and just standing back, letting Dream, Otis, Vernon, and all those guys get their time, because I felt like they had been in the trenches for so long to get to that point. For me, I was like, okay, it'll happen again, not knowing that it would happen 6 more times, and not knowing for Sam, he didn't win another championship till like 12 years later, because you don't know in that moment. You just enjoying the moment, and you think that this is what it is. This is how it's supposed to go.
It's such an amazing thing. So before we dive into all your NBA accolades, which there's so many, Robert, we were joking before we came on, and I'm one of a few people. You tell me there's a lot of people that know where Andalusia, Alabama is, but I'm not real sure. But Robert Horry is from Andalusia, and kind of where we first connected was, I played at Alabama, and Robert came in. You came in right after me, right 1 year behind me. We both shared the same college basketball coach in Wimp Sanderson. So here you are in Andalusia, Robert. You're in Andalusia, Alabama. Was it always Alabama, or kind of what were you thinking going way back in your mind?
It was, for me, in my mind, was Georgia Tech from day one.
I thought so. I remember that.
Georgia Tech wasn't recruiting me, and then, you think Wimp was recruiting me ever since I was a sophomore. I remember all the days coming up there, and you remember watching Barkley and Dr. J play the NBA game at Coleman Coliseum, at Alabama, being there for your SEC championship. I was there for a lot of games, so Alabama was recruiting me hard. And once they got their hooks into my mom, it was a wrap. Whatever she said was going to happen. And even though I wanted to go to Georgia Tech with all my heart, and it just Alabama, something about them and the way they, Kevin Gray, Wimp Sanderson, and Polinsky, those guys kind of, made you fall in love with them. And I ended up at Alabama, and I'm glad I did. 3 SEC championships later, missed it out on my senior year, but it was a great time. I wouldn't change it for anything in the world. And that's one of the things I tell these kids that want to go pro so soon. Man, I'm telling you, there's nothing like college life. You will enjoy college if you just give it a chance and experience it. Stop trying to be an adult before you need to be.
Yeah, that's a great lesson, Robert. And, a lot of people, in Alabama, obviously, and in the South, they're very familiar with Wimp Sanderson. And but sometimes around the country, people remember the plaid coats and his jackets and sport coats. But do you think, Robert, that Wimp was he's a very good basketball coach, but pretty simple but hard. Like he coached hard, and he wanted you to play hard and practice hard. And when you walked in there as a freshman, did you have an idea? He's the epitome of the old school guy. I'm not sure a lot of guys like him could survive in today's era, but when you walked in there, all of a sudden, here's a guy that's pretty tough and gruff, and he demanded a lot. So how'd you adapt?
For me, I came from a really strict high school coach, Richard Robertson. I mean, he was so strict on me that it was certain things that I could not do. He wouldn't my senior year was when they put the 3-point line in Alabama. He wouldn't let me shoot threes then. It's like if we were up, it was like he was really strict. So I came from, a strict background. My mom being a school teacher, my dad being in the military. When it comes to discipline and doing what you were supposed to do, it was nothing new to me. I think a lot of guys, when they're so good, they get catered to. You think about it, all the great kids now, they're getting catered to. So it's almost like they say, okay, coach, I want you to run 5 plays in a row for me. The coach is going to do it. And I was never catered to not one point in my life, not on the court, not off the court, because my parents were strict, And so for me, I think when Wimp was like, okay, this is what we're going to do, I was used to it because I've never been catered to in anything I've done.
It's interesting because Jim Farmer and I went back a couple months ago, and we sat with Coach Sanderson with Wimp in his house, and we got to talking about all kind of stories. We had a great afternoon, about 4 or 5 hours, but he told me a story now. He said, where was the time? Now he said, I threw Robert out. I just threw him right out of practice. He said, but then I looked at my manager and I said, go in there and make sure he doesn't leave. He didn't want you to leave the gym, but he wanted to throw you.
Whip threw me out of practice like 3 times, man. But for me, I've always been that person that if I believe in something, I'm going to speak up. And a lot back then, coaches didn't want you to speak up. It was their way of the highway. But I was going to say, hey, this is how I'm feeling. This is what I believe is best for me. And sometimes coaches can take that the wrong way, and it takes you a while to communicate that to the coaches. And you go back in time, and I could have talked to myself. Go to Wimp's office. Because you don't think about that when our age. You don't go to a coach's office. I'm like, yo, Wimp, this ain't working for me. This is what I feel comfortable. This is what we need to do. And if I would have did that, I probably never got kicked off out of a practice because he knows, like, even though you can ask Wimp, you can ask Pop, you can ask, Phil. I've yelled at all of them. I'm like, yo, if you're going to yell at me, I'm going to yell back at you because I'm going to get my point across because I want to be heard. That way you can get the best out of me.
That is too funny. So when my little era at Alabama, we had some really good players. Buck Johnson ended up being a really good player and a good pro, and Bobby Lee Hurt, and then Derek McKee had a unbelievable long tenured in the NBA. Jim Farmer was a draft pick. I got drafted. There was a lot of us. We had good players, but right after us, when you came, Robert, all of a sudden the talent level, in my view, we were good, but your group, the talent level went to a whole nother level. Talk about some of those guys, and a lot of people don't even realize some of the guys you played with in college at the University of Alabama.
What's weird is I credit that to Derek and Jim and you and Avery. And I say Avery Johnson because you guys used to come back in the summertime and play with us. And I think that made us better. I know for me, going up against Derek McKee all those years and trying to stop him, not able to stop him, it wanted me to get better. And then as those guys who came in, after that, it's like, then here comes, the Keith Askins, the Benoits, the Spreewells, all these guys, the Jason Caffeys. We were always pushing each other because you guys filtered it down to us. It's so weird when you talk about culture. Now everybody's talking about Miami Heat and their culture. There was a culture at Alabama. When you came in there, none of us was really like nationally recruited. We were highly recruited in our state, but we weren't like nationally known. Maybe James Robinson, it was maybe him. But we all came in, we knew that we had to work extra hard to be better than everybody else because we weren't going to be given anything. Especially going to the University of Alabama. Alabama football is first there. Alabama basketball is a second thought. And so for us, we worked that much harder because we wanted to be good. We wanted to be better. We kept pushing each other. And next thing you know, we win in SEC championships. We getting more people to come to Alabama. And it was just, to me, the culture there was, you think about all the days. We laugh and joke about it now. How Rocky Coburn, our strength and conditioning coach, would say that, didn't make it. And you didn't cross that line, you had to do it again. It was hard out there in the Alabama heat running on that track. So it made us better people, made us better men, and made us better, all around basketball players.
Yeah, it was such a great experience for all of us, and Coach Sanderson had, he just did such an amazing job. So that was a lot of fun. And Robert, I was looking up something this morning, and I didn't even realize this till today. But while you were in the NBA, and I hope I have this right, so if I'm wrong, correct me on this. I think you played 16 years. Is that correct?
Correct.
In 16 years, 16 playoff appearances. Correct?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know, Robert. There's a lot of guys that have played in the NBA. You probably know this because somebody's asked you this along the way. I'm sure you've been interviewed 10,000 times, but I'm not sure there's a lot of guys that played 16 years and had 16 playoff appearances. Yeah. Am I right with this?
But I'm gonna add something to that. I never lost in the first round. So
there you go.
I add that to that. Yeah, and that's the one thing. That's why you look back for a long time. Before they changed the format up, instead of just playing 5 games in the first round. That's why I was able to catch Kareem so quickly and pass him in the most playoff appearances, and then Fish passed me, and of course LeBron has passed everybody. He played 20 years, but yeah, it's a lot of playoff games, and I tell everybody, I say, yeah, I probably had more than that, but I was lucky. We were good. We swept so many people that we didn't have to go, just to 7-game series. So yeah, I was very proud that I went to the playoffs 16 seasons, never lost in the first round.
That's amazing, Robert. And, from a distance, everywhere I was along the way coaching and, all those things, I'm always watching you from a distance. And, you ended up having this reputation and, the nickname, Big Shot Bob. But you just made a lot of key baskets at key times. And those people that don't play the game never have played the game. I'm not sure they ever recognize sometimes how significant that is because, there are some guys that can't make it. They just can't make the shot when, the game is on the line. Where do you think that came from for you?
For me, I just thinking it goes all the way back to high school for me, man. I think when they played in the Andalusia Invitational Tournament, and we won it every year except my junior year. I missed the free throw in order to tie a game up. And to see how upset and how to see my teammates crying because we lost that game. We ended the streak. And from that moment on, I just had to focus. I got to concentrate. I got to be better. If they're going to come to me at the end of the game, I got to knock down that shot. Mm-hmm. Even if you go back to an NCAA tournament playing Loyola Marymount, I missed the shot at the buzzer to beat them. Mm-hmm. I felt like crap. I was sick for like 3 or 4 days. And this is one of the times, nobody even knows about that game. But it's one of those things that hits home. A lot of guys can miss a shot. Oh, you live and it hurts. It hurts when you miss. It's been 3 shots in my life that, have hurt me to my core. It was that free throw I missed in high school, that shot that I missed against Loyola Marymount, and the shot I missed against the Spurs when I was in the Lakers uniform. I missed that 3 at the end of the game. So those 3 shots, you can tell, like you miss shots, but when it's at the end of the game, your teammates are looking at you because you're that guy that's supposed to end games with a good shot, and you miss it. It hurts, man. It hurts dearly. And those 3 shots, they haunt me to this day. And if I could, wave my magic wand and go back in time, I'll make all 3 of those. But it is what it is.
Another thing too, Robert, is players know. We all know when we're playing. Because we want to win. Everybody wants to win. You're out there, especially at the level that you're at now. You're talking about in the NBA playoffs. But guys know. And if you're open late in the game and you've delivered before and I'm playing with you, I'm coming to you again because you've given me confidence now to get you the ball. Did you begin to feel that as well, that your teammates began to say, you're not going to make every shot. We get all that. You're not perfect. But that confidence that your teammates had, that if it goes to Robert, we got a great chance he's going to make this thing.
Yeah, I think, from being in the Laker uniforms, I think about the late, great Kobe Bryant and the fact that half the passes I got, I said 3/4 the passes came from him. And he had the reputation of, quote unquote, being a ball hog. But hell, he found me a lot of the times. That's how I help signify my nickname. But, for me, it was one of those key moments. It's almost, I don't know what it is about at end of game situations where there's almost like something takes over you. It's like all the mechanics are perfect. The flight of the ball is perfect. Everything is picture perfect for me. And I think for me, when you have those teammates that have seen it so many times, they're more in shock when you miss than you are
Mm-hmm.
because they've seen it so many times.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that oneness you have as a team. And I remember the shot I missed in San Antonio. You can go back and look at the guys. They were always like, "Oh, we got the Rob. We gonna make it," and then they missed it. Like, "Oh crap, Rob missed that." They weren't used to it because they have just as much confidence in me as I had in myself, and I think the coaches did also.
Robert, when did you, because when you played at Alabama and, the 3-point line was just coming in, my last year in 86, 87 was the first year in college basketball for the 3-point line in NCAA play. And then here you come to Alabama. You weren't really known as a great 3-point shooter. And obviously when you're in college with your size, your height, we're going to get you around the basket probably a little bit more as then you become an NBA player. But even through college, I thought you began to really develop and become a much more reliable 3-point shooter. And then obviously through your run through the NBA, I thought you just kept getting better throughout the time. But when did you feel like that was something you were confident in and that's part of my game?
Well, it's so weird. I've always been confident just shooting the basketball. You think about when you grow up in Alabama and you're a skinny kid, you can't go on the inside. You go get beat up. So you learn how to shoot. Playing against my brother, and all these guys in my hometown, Brando, Dexter. These are guys that helped me develop the shot because they wouldn't let me come on the inside because when you're taller than someone, I jump right over them. But now they would beat you up. So I said, you know what? I'm too skinny, and I just learned how to shoot more and more and more. And even if you go back to when I remember my sophomore year, we playing Colorado State, and I made all those threes, and everybody like, hold on, he's a center. Like, no, dog, I'm a basketball player. I'm
Right.
like one of the first guys. I'm not defined by my position. I'm a player that can do inside, outside. And for me, and then as I got in the NBA, it wasn't no room down to think about it. I played with Dream. I ain't gonna be on the block. Who's a better post-up player? And you go to Shaq. I don't need to be down there. Then you go to Tim Duncan. So you have to develop. If you want to stay on the floor, you have to adapt. You have to be that amoeba and adapt to whatever situation it is. And for me, I just kept working on it and kept working on it, and it became part of my repertoire. Even though I used to miss the days where I can get in the post and post up, throw a jump here, a fade away there, but you have to play where you can play, and you play where it helps the team the best.
Robert, do you feel like, and I always used to say this about Mo Williams, and I coach Mo, and we're really close, but
Hold on.
Mo.
I can't believe you let him wear number 25, man, at Alabama. You supposed to have retired that number. But go on, man. We'll go somewhere else with that.
Robert's still mad at me. He got to wear number 25. But I used to tell people that Mo, Mo was a good player, really good player, and he obviously, won the championship in Cleveland with LeBron. But I always felt like Mo's biggest strength, or one of them, was that he learned how to be a pro. And whenever he got traded from Utah to Minnesota to Cleveland to Charlotte, he always survived, and then he survived for, 15, 16 years because he learned how to be a pro. I always felt you did that. Now, obviously, you were a really good player. But every time you went to a different organization, you had to make sure that you adapted a little bit to what they're doing and how your game fits. And then at the end, you look back and you've had this really long run. But don't you think a lot of players, there's some really good players, they just don't know how to survive as a pro. Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah, I totally, I understand. I tell people all this time, you think about great guys like Allen Iverson. Once he left the Sixers, great player, didn't really fit in. Do you worry about shots? Do you just rebound? Do you do this? Do that? And for me, I just love playing. I just love playing the game, but more important, I love winning and competing. And for me, that's where I just hung my hat on. So I don't care about it. If I get shots, you take them.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't worry about it. It's not. If you get a dub, who cares who gets the points? So for me, that's the biggest key. You have to be a pro's pro. You have to understand there are guys on this team who can't survive in this world without getting 10 to 15 shots a game. And there's guys who can do it without. And which guy are you going to be? And for me, I've been very fortunate. I've only played, I think one time where there was no head guy on the team. That was in the Phoenix Suns, and that didn't work out very well for me.
Mm-hmm.
I got up out of there. But
Mm-hmm.
other than that, we knew the pecking order. We knew it was Dream. We knew it was Shaq, then it was Kobe, then we knew it was Tim, then Manu, then Tony, or Tim, Tony, and Manu, depending on the night. So you knew your pecking order. You just fit in where you get in, and you got to enjoy it, man. And a lot of guys get so frustrated because they feel like my next contract is depending on how many points I get. No, the next contract is depending on if you win.
And you've always won, so you were always an
Yeah.
attractive guy. How about this one, Robert? So you get drafted, and some guys get drafted and they go to crappy teams. I mean, and sometimes you're stuck in a bad organization that's got no chance to win, and they don't have the players. They're not making a commitment, but you had opportunities where you are around really good players, really good coaches. So here you come into the NBA, and talk a little bit about just kind of that first impression, first year. You got some dudes around you now. There's some players there.
It was weird when I got drafted by Houston. They booed the crap out of me because I think they were so. And I hate to say this, they thought I was Buck Johnson because it was weird. One Alabama player was replacing another Alabama player. I was replacing Buck Johnson, and they never knew who I was because it's like, oh, he's a center. Why are we drafting him? We need a small forward. I said, no, I'm not. I already went over that. But for me, looking at the team that I went across to the NBA, and I was like, what team would I fit in perfect with? I said the Houston Rockets because they need a small forward. That's who I am. They need a guy who can play defense. That's who I am. And when I got there, Dream was mad. He was mad with his contract. He just came off a bad season with injuries and stuff. And and I was happy they came out with a bad injury because that means I got to be in the lottery. And for me, it was just one of those situations where I used to go to dinner. I should breakfast every morning with Otis Thorpe. I used to sit down with Tree Rollins. Would talk to Vernon and Kenny. And those guys was just like, yo, man, we brought you here to do what you do. We can win a championship. You're the missing piece. And I don't know if they were just saying that to be nice, but I believed it. I believe I was that guy. Even though I struggled, with shot selection my first year there. I mean, going into my second year, and that's the reason I got traded. But after a while, you figure it out. You figure like, I'm not going to just, give the ball up to these guys. I'm going to take what's given to me. And for me, that was the biggest thing and the biggest learning point for me when I got to the NBA was take what's given to you. Don't sit back and wait till it be given to you. Take it. If it's there, take it. And for me, I learned a lot from Otis, Dream and Kenny and Vernon. Those guys, we went through a lot of battles to win that first championship, and it was all due to those guys having confidence in me.
Robert, I feel like, and we all, as we get older, we love to have conversations about who's the best, who's this, top, whatever. I mean, my kids, they want to, we talk about all that stuff all the time just for the fun of it. The one guy that I think is left out of the conversation, I'm not going to go as far as saying like the GOAT, but a guy that's probably way better than I think people realize is Hakeem. I mean, I look back in that era, Robert, I mean, there had to be times when you're playing and he's shaking and baking and up and unders, and he's so quick and agile at his size. There had to be some times where you're even on the floor going, whoa, wow. Yeah. What did he just do?
It was a lot of those times. Yeah, if you think about it, Dream was like one of the first bigs to do a crossover. He was crossing dudes up, spinning on them, fake, up fake. Think about it. MVP and Defensive Player of the Year. I think that's only been done 2 other times. And people don't talk about him. I know. And that's the one thing about being bigs in this game of basketball. They get overlooked a lot because they say, well, they're big. They're supposed to do that. I'm like, well, little guys are supposed to go by big guys, but you don't talk about that.
Right.
And I think him and, to me, Kareem are the 2 guys that never get talked in that GOAT conversation because they feel like they weren't flashy enough. And I think also when you look at the guards, they get more love because they shooting the threes. They doing this. The three has really, taken over in the sense of people look at the game as, oh, how's his 3-point shooting? I'm like, dude, it ain't about that. It's about getting buckets. And you think about it. Kareem had their record for scoring for a long time. Dream is an all-time defender, like all-time shot block. It's so many things these 2 guys that are great at, but they just look at the flashiness of those guards and the guys who can dunk. So, but Dream does get overlooked, and every time I see him, he comes up to me and says, "Thank you for always saying that I'm one of the greatest of all time." And I say, "Hey, you are."
Period. He is, period. You know, I was at an event in L.A. this is a number of years ago, and it was at a bowling alley there at the L.A. Live, that bowling alley up top. And
Uh-huh.
I'm standing there and a couple of my kids, and it was Shaq, David Robinson, Ralph Sampson, and there was a fourth. I can't remember who it was. But anyway, and I remember looking at him thinking, like, you guys are like dinosaurs. Like, what happened to you? Like, you guys aren't around anymore. All the big guys are shooting threes and dribbling and running, and you know the old fashioned post up dominant guy like Shaq was. The game has kind of changed so much that it's an interesting thing for me. Do you see that as well? Obviously, you know, it's different now.
I see it because nowadays every guard, you think about the coaching and the play was like get it inside and go inside out first. Now it's outside, outside. If it's a big on the inside, give it to him unless it's a dunk. The game has just changed in the philosophy. It's played faster. It's shooting threes. No defense being played. You think about it, Rudy Gobert won Defensive Player of the Year. He can't get on the floor with his Olympic team. And so it's just weird how, the game is viewed. And I think it's so weird if you start talking about the game, the guys from I say from the 1990s to the 2020, if you say something about the game, you consider a hater. I'm like, dude, we ain't haters. We just pointing out what we see. The game is not as beautiful as it used to be. It's played faster, which we like, but the defensive aspect of the game is thrown out the window. And that was the one great thing about our sport. And the term two-way player, I hate it because it's no term. You're supposed to play both ways. It's why it's called basketball up and down. It's not football. The only term the two-way player should be used is in football. And for me, you play basketball. And for me, when guys go out and you play on both ends of the floor, I just love. That's why I hate to see things like Klay Thompson. I love him because he was a guy who did it on both ends now. With all the injuries, he can't do what he does. But the dinosaurs are gone. The way of defense is gone. There's so many things in the NBA that is gone.
Robert, I think one thing is gone, and I go back, and I remember when Mo went to Utah, and then you were in Houston, and I go through all these different periods, but every organization, every head coach and coaching staff, not every, but a lot of them, they were so different. Like what Jerry Sloan did in Utah was way different than what somebody else was doing somebody else. And then you played with Phil Jackson and how good he was. But it seems like now guys could get traded and they just go to the next team because we're all kind of running the same stuff. We just run a drag screen or we screen out of the break, and we put two guys in the corners in the break. They got to run to both. And in the 80s and 90s, and I know I sound like I'm an old fart right now, but I kind of enjoyed the fact that everybody was different. Everybody played differently. Every organization, the coaches were different. They had a different philosophy than everybody else.
Yeah. And if you look at the NBA, everybody thinks they have Steph Curry and Klay Thompson on their team. You don't. That's why they're able to do that. The NBA is such a copycat league. You think about it, everybody wanted bigs because you had to stop David, Ewing, Shaq, Dream. Then all of a sudden you get a three-point shooter like Steph. Oh, we got to stop Steph. We got to add three-point shooters. But it's so weird that you say that because I think the same thing all the time. And if you look at the Denver Nuggets and the reason they're so great and they just kind of ran into a buzzsaw with the Minnesota team, they don't run what everybody else runs. They don't run all 3 out, 4 out. Even though they have three-point shooters, they use Jokic. They do pick and rolls. They roll to the basket. They got back cuts. They have all these things other than like running to the three-point line. Let me go one-on-one, throw up a shot or kick it out to the shot. It's basketball. When you move the ball like that, because you think about this defensively now. Guys now, I complain about this with the Lakers. I cover the Lakers. Guys just put a foot on the paint and just say, okay, LeBron, you're going to drive. We're going to make you kick it. And then we're going to make you swing it to your worst three-point shooter, and we're going to live with that. And you got to have some plays, some backdoors, but everybody has this philosophy that, we got to make threes. No, you got to get buckets. You think about the Denver Nuggets won championship without being they're not wasn't great three-point shooters like Golden State. Milwaukee Bucks, when they won it, all these teams outside of the Warriors, they had dominant bigs that got them easy buckets. And so this is what they got to think about, not shooting threes and everybody want to be like Golden State because you don't have Steph and you don't have Clay, but you think you do when you don't.
Robert, do you think the emphasis on the analytics, some of that's really good? As a coach, we'd have all these analytics, and sometimes I would look and say, okay, that kind of confirms what I already thought, or maybe I'll look at it differently. But I was never the guy that I'm going all in on an analytic because there's so many other factors. I mean, who you're playing against, who's guarding a guy. I mean, some guy can have a plus minus and all that kind of stuff, but a lot of it depends on, there are other factors. There's 10 guys on the court playing at one time. Do you think analytics has shifted that a little bit in the NBA to where everybody now, it's got to be a layup or a three? That's it.
I'm not a strong component of analytics. I think analytics, because analytics can't measure your heart. They can't measure your desire. You might be a great 3-point shooter, but if I have the heart and desire to stop you, those analytics go out the window. And analytics can't judge how together you are as a team. That oneness is, but in analytics, somewhere with this math genius that sat around and said, "Oh, 3 is more than 2." Hell, we all know that. We know that, but you can't put analytics on someone's heart. You can't put an analytics on how the cohesiveness a team has. And that's what you got to think about at the end of the day. If I know what you're going to do, it doesn't matter what analytics say. If I believe in you and I have that trust in you, it doesn't matter what analytics are going to say, because we get to a point where we trust the numbers. This ain't a computer lab, man. This is human nature. This is basketball. You got to trust someone's heart and their basketball IQ, because analytics, you can throw that crap out the window when the playoffs start.
I used to tell people sometimes I'll listen, but at the end of the day, if I have a hunch, I'm going to bet a bunch, because in my gut, in my eyes, I've done this my whole life. My eyes are going to tell me something that might be a little different than your analytics sheet, and I'm going to go with my gut a little bit more. And I'd listen, but I do think it has shifted and it's changed a lot of the organizations and who they draft, who they trade for, what free agents we're going to sign, how we're going to play, who we're going to hire as a coach, and it just kind of is too heavy in that for me right now. I'm not a fan.
It's a couple organizations I know about, and they do the analytical stuff. I'm asking yourself, how many of y'all have in here won championships? Please raise your hand. And none of you can raise your hand, so throw that shit out the window. Get someone who knows basketball, man, because analytics ain't gonna teach you the game like a person who's been through the grind, who knows and understands. I believe in body language more than I believe in analytics. And for me, I can look at your body language and I can tell you if I got you mentally, or if you got me mentally, or you're confident, whatever it may be, other than analytics. Because you come out on the court and you see a guy with his head down, it don't matter what the analytics say. I know I got him because he's already know he's done. That's right. And for me, that's the things I believe in: body language, not analytics.
No question. All right, we're going to talk about body language now since you brought it up. So you had a short stint now in Phoenix. Short, wasn't long. It was short. It was the only organization that just didn't work out, and you didn't flourish. And we did have one night where you got the towel, and I think you threw that towel at Danny Ainge. So was it frustration, Robert, just because I'm here and we're not very good, or what was it?
All the above. So here's the funny story. When Sam Cassell, Mark Bryant, Chucky Bryant, Mark Bryant and Chucky Brown, we got traded to Phoenix. And we had just come out kicking Phoenix butts, down 0-2, winning that series, down 3-1, winning that series. And there was a moment where Danny Ainge rears back and throws the ball and hit Mario Elliott in the face with it, like point blank range. And Mario was my guy. I love Mario to death. And the first thing Danny Ainge tells us when we got it, he says, "Yeah, I did that on purpose." And now, I already hate you. Now you're my coach. I hate you even more. And then became the head coach. That's 3 times hate. And I hate to use the word hate because I don't think anybody should hate anybody, but I would say I strongly disliked him. And for me, and it's so many, and he'll tell a different story, which is a lie. He remember him sitting there saying, "Oh, we traded away Michael Finley and AC Green to Dallas," which I was really pissed I wasn't in that trade. Like the way so you can get more minutes. My minutes went down. My minutes went down. And so for me, it was just at a point where it was frustrating, and I'm not telling kids, any kid never do that, kids, but it was so much animosity between me and him from when we played. You know, even go to a backstory. We did a whole game when after he hit Mario with the ball, where we didn't care if we lost the game. It was about getting revenge on him. You go back and look at that game, it's so many times where he came off picks and we would just light him up. Oh, you want to call a foul? We didn't care because we had Mario's back so bad that we were just trying to light him up. And that's where it came from, man. I hate that it happened because, to this day, Colangelo probably still hates me. That's probably why I never got mentioned for the Hall of Fame, because of Colangelo. But it's one of those things where, I didn't like it there. I didn't like Danny Ainge. I didn't like the organization. We talk about culture. You go into a situation where nobody practiced. Oh, I'm sick. I'm not going to get detailed in what players it was, but it was even a point where one player was mad that we made a trade. He didn't come to practice. It was a point where one guy was like, I don't feel like practice day. I'm like, dude, you get paid. We are 0-15, 0-12, and you don't want to practice? And to me, that boils down to culture. And it was just hard for me coming from Wimp, coming from Richard Robertson, coming from the Rockets, where when you suck on the court during a game, you go to practice and you get better. These guys didn't want to practice. So the culture just wasn't there. And there was a lot of frustrating things when you come from one type of culture where you go to practice to get better. When these guys go to practice to socialize, it just wasn't the right situation for me.
So next move, here it comes. Now you get the word. You're going to the Lakers, the Los Angeles Lakers. What was going through your mind?
Dude, Danny Ainge called me and says, I probably just won you another championship. I'm shipping you to the Lakers. All right, bye. I hung up on him. I packed my car up. I called one of my buddies that live in LA. I said, yo, man, get here and take my other car. We packed everything up and we drove to LA that next day. I was in LA in 24 hours, man. I was so happy to get out of Phoenix. And then, and this was before we had GPS. I didn't know where the hell I was going, but I got to LA. That's how bad I wanted out of Phoenix, man. It was, I thought, I was so used to playing with a big man and so used to being able to read situations. And in Phoenix, it just wasn't a situation. Even though I love playing with Jason Kidd for those 2 games I did, because that dude, he'll get you the rock and you can score. And so for me, it just didn't work out. I didn't like the city. And that was because I was going through some personal problems. My daughter was sick at the time, and I just, being separated from her. And that's one of the things that a lot of people don't understand, that part of, the business of basketball. At the end of the day, we're human beings. We have things that are going on at home. Me, not being close to my daughter for the first time, who's in and out of the hospital, not being close to my wife. It was a difficult situation, young guy who never had a situation like this before. So it was frustrating. So off the court, that was going on. And then once I got to LA, I was happy on the court. My wife came out and she was happy I was off the court. So the situation was just perfect, man. We had a great situation playing with one of the upcoming bigs, Nick Van Exel, Eddie Jones, Derek Fisher. And then, of course, the little rookie called Kobe Bryant. It was the start of a beautiful relationship.
I look back on that, Robert, and I've always wondered this too, because I did spend when I was at UCLA, and when you're at a program that, like the Lakers, that have so much tradition and statues out front and banners up top, and when you walk in, there's a little different feel. Like, all right, I need to play now. I mean, I'm a good player. I believe in myself, but this one's just a little different now, and I gotta raise my game up to another level, because the expectation of everybody is that you're there to win and to win championships. Some organizations, that they can talk all they want about it, they're really not committed to that. But now with the Lakers, did you feel that in LA?
I actually did. Especially when you walk in, you see all these greats. You got Magic talking to you, you got Kareem, James, Coop, all these guys talking to you about, this is the team. I can see it. Because basketball players know. If you have when you step out on that court, if you have the ability to go far in the playoffs, far in this league. When I stepped out on the court, I was with the Phoenix Suns, I wasn't even going damn place. We weren't good enough. When I got to, LA, I'm looking around like, man, we got guys who can D up. We got guys who can shoot. we can go places.
Mm-hmm.
Even though the team was still young, you think that was my fifth year in the league?
Mm-hmm.
We were still young. Shaq
Mm-hmm.
was young. I was young. Nick and Eddie were in their third year. It was a lot of talent, but it was young talent. We weren't smart enough yet. That's why,
Mm-hmm.
Utah Jazz were able to beat us and sweep us. But
Mm-hmm.
it was a young team. By the time we got, 2000 and got Phil, we understood. We understood that the pressures of being in the Laker uniform was there, but we could handle the pressure now because we were older, we were mature, and we knew exactly what to do.
Mm-hmm. When you first saw a young Kobe, now I watched him in high school. I watched him at the ABCD camp, and I watched this gangly, thin, pretty, played hard. I loved how hard he played, and he didn't back down from anybody, by the way, in the high school, those camps, back in the All-Star camps. But for you, could you recognize early on when he was young, like, man, this young dude's got a chance to be unbelievably special?
Yeah. When I watch him, he reminds me of this wild horse.
That's
Like
right.
if you could just tame it
Mm-hmm.
a little bit, it's going to be the best racehorse you could ever have. And for
Mm-hmm.
me, you would watch him in practice. Everything, it's like he would put like 50 moves in one move. Like, dude, you did 50 moves. I'm still standing here. You coming back to me. And it's like he had all the talent in the world. And I remember him coming to me and just saying, yo, tell me about Dream's footwork. I said, dude, it's one of the things to tell you, but you just got to sit there and watch it and analyze it for yourself. Because he just loved the game. He loved getting better. And I tell this all the time. Was like with Kobe, you could tell him he couldn't do something, and he was gonna go in the gym the next day and practice just to prove you wrong. He was that type of guy. They love proving you wrong. I played with some guys. I'm not gonna mention their names. That you'd be like, "Yo, come on, let's go work on this." He's like, "Nah, I don't want to do that." I said, "But you suck at it." He says, "That's why I don't practice on it because I'm not good." I'm like, "That's the reason you practice on it." And there's so many guys in the NBA, they only work on the things they're good at. But Kobe he was so headstrong that you tell him, you can't kick the ball from half court into the basket. He'll probably be in the gym trying to do that because he wanted to prove you wrong and said there's nothing he couldn't do. You think about this. He played a whole half with with left-handed because he had hurt his right shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
You think about that, man. That's how good that dude was,
Yeah.
and his ability just to play the game.
People forget too with Kobe when his rookie year and he struggled and played but didn't play. He played, but it wasn't like he was later. And he struggled in the playoffs. Remember a couple times, and
Oh, I was there for that.
you were
Yeah.
there. But what a great lesson, though. I mean, he obviously had great talent, but the determination that he had to he went through some tough times. And most people forget those. They just remember the later years of Kobe. They forget the early years when he really struggled, as a lot of young players do in the league. It's a hard league to just jump right in and dominate. And he had to learn how to play at that level.
And I think also you think about the team he jumped on. He jumped on the Lakers. People forget how good Nick Van Exel was. People
Mm-hmm.
forget how good Eddie Jones was. They don't forget how good Shaq was. And that was our three big dogs. And
Mm-hmm.
like then you had myself, Rick, and Derek Fisher, and AC Green, and it was he had to fit in. He wasn't proven yet, and
Mm-hmm.
he had to earn his stripes. But once he earned his stripes, he took everybody's stripes and added his and just played great. And I think that's what people forget. It's like once you kick in that door, you got to do more than just kicking the door to stay where you are. He kicked in the door and he started doing whatever it is he
Mm-hmm.
need to be to stay on top.
Robert, how long did it take you to kind of become a believer in Phil Jackson?
For me, I think it took just after training camp.
Mm.
And for me, when playing for all the coaches I played for, and you listen to their philosophies and you listen to their talk, you listen to how they treat everybody, and that's the one thing that I always watch. I hate coaches that are scared to yell at the big dog. You don't yell at the guy who makes one mistake, and you won't yell at the guy who makes 20 mistakes. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, he's a big. You got to yell at. You got to treat everybody the same, and that's the one thing that when I saw Phil was on Shaq, yelling at him every day and yelling at Kobe, and I'm like, okay, you can yell at me too, then, since you yell at everybody else, even though he wouldn't yell at me. But it's just one of those things that you fill out. You have to fill out coaches, and I know that sounds weird, but you have to understand what a coach wants and what a coach needs and what his philosophy is, so you can try to do what's best, your best ability to make that team better. So you get playing time, I should say.
Robert, you played for great coaches, and obviously, like our college coach, Wimp Sanderson, he never coached in the NBA, but I've always said he's very underrated, even on the college level. But you played for great coaches in the NBA, and I hate it when somebody would say, "Well, who's the best of all of them?" I wouldn't ask you that, but they're all different. But talk a little bit about what made each one of them. You mentioned a little bit about Phil, but what made the guys so good? And obviously you have to have good players. We got that. But you still got to win with good players. People forget that too now. And not everybody does. But you played for great coaches. Tell me a little bit about some of the guys and what stood out for you as you played all those years in the NBA.
I think at the end of the day, it's about how a coach is able to tap into a player's psyche, get them to believe in what they're saying. And I think all those guys I played for, I think about my first year where Dream, I think he averaged like 30 shots a game, and then it's going into his second year. Rudy had to talk to him, say, hey, we can't win unless you pass the ball, move the ball. You're gonna get yours, but you gotta have the other guys to tap it. And then you having that ability to talk to players. Same thing with Shaq, Kobe, and Phil talking. And with Pop, I think Pop had the easy because you brought the best player you brought in was a military guy and David Robinson, and everybody just kind of trickled down from there. And I think, but Pop, he always had the ability to get guys to fall in line and do what the system, do his system, because you got enough players, you got enough talent. If you play defensively, you'll win ball games. And I think that's the one key also, that I was very fortunate. If you look at all the championships I won, each team was top 5 defensively. We were able to show you, and when it came to shove, we were able to stop you and lock you down. And also helped that I played with 3 of the best all-time shot blockers too. So, you have the ability to push up on guys and force them to those bigs, and then so they can block shots. So, but all 3 coaches were headstrong and playing defense first, and the offense to figure it out, because we know we had enough talent to put the ball in the hole. It's just trust one another, and that's the biggest key, that when you have coaches that tell you that trust one another, you're going to do that eventually, and you're going to win championships.
Robert, I think any organization, I don't care if it's in sports or outside of sports, we all talk about it. You mentioned it earlier about culture. In Alabama, we had a great culture there. That there was a lot of winning going on. But I always looked at, and I know all the guys. I know RC in San Antonio, and I've met Pop. But it just seemed like, and you were there, but it just seemed like the culture there.
Yeah.
And obviously you had David Robinson followed by Tim Duncan. Now, two highly quality guys. But the organization all the way through with yourself and people that they brought in, it seemed like they knew what they wanted in a player, character-wise. It just seemed like the culture became so good. Am I right or wrong with that?
You're totally right. It goes back to what I said about when you get David Robinson and then you get Tim Duncan. And then it's the one thing about when you get these foreign players who back then didn't know no better, you come in and Pop's telling you, this is the way it's done in the NBA. So you got Pop, you got Monty, you got all these guys, you got Tim, you got all these guys doing it this right. And Avery, Avery the captain, all these guys are doing it the right way. And that's just how it is. When you step into a situation and you've never been there before, and all of a sudden this is how it's done, you think this is how it's supposed to be done around the league. And until you get to another team like I did when I got to Phoenix, I'm like, this is why we win and y'all don't. And for me, that is what happened with San Antonio Spurs. You think about, you got David Robinson, one of the most disciplined guys in the league, and then you get Tim Duncan, one of the most boring, disciplined guys in the league, that's going to do what he did because he just wants to play basketball. The culture that's how it is. You come in, you practice hard, you play hard, and you win chips and you go home and you don't even talk about it. I think one of the funniest stories is like Pop was so mad when Eva Longoria started coming around, because we started getting, national notice now because Eva Longoria is coming around. He's like, I don't want all this shit. I just want to play basketball, play under the radar, win championships, drink my wine, and go home. But with Eva, now we got national recognition because we got Desperate Housewives hanging out with Tony Parker.
All right, I'm going to put you on the spot now a few times here. All right, you played against number 23 in Chicago. And then you played with Kobe in L.A. If you had to, I hate saying this, but I'm going to put you on the spot. If you had to pick one, who are you picking?
gonna have to pick Kobe because
Wow.
even though I seen MJ kick it to Kerr one time, I ain't seen him kick it to nobody else. But I know Kobe has kicked it to me a few times, so I'm gonna have to take Kobe in this, because MJ always says, he would take, Kobe over LeBron because five is more than four. I said I'm gonna take Kobe because I've won three with Kobe. I won none with him. So I'm gonna take Kobe every day, all day.
Is that unbelievable that you
Yeah.
played with him and against him? And that's an amazing run. All right, here's another one. You get 5 players, Robert. Now, if you lose the game, you're never, ever allowed to, walk in a gym the rest of your life. So you got to win. You have to win this game, and you get 5 players. Who are your 5?
Out of the whole entire league of people I played with,
Everybody in the whole world, all time. I want to know Robert Horry's 5 because you have to win this game right now.
I'm taking Shaq and Dream. I'm taking Pippen, Jordan, and Kobe.
Whoa, I like that.
See, people, when I throw Pippen there, people like, you got to feel like this is a game. This is one of the things about Pippen people don't understand. He was a stopper. He could guard anybody on the floor. And you think about it, Kobe doesn't have to handle the ball. MJ doesn't have to handle the ball. I got the point forward and Scotty bringing it up. So that is my start. Think about it. That's all 5 of those guys have been top defensive number 1 team. So maybe not Shaq, but still though, you ain't gonna go in there. So that's my starting 5.
Isn't that great? All right, here's another one
but I'm
for
the first
you.
off the bench, though.
What's that? You're first.
I'm the first off the bench.
All right, here's another one for you now. So I have a great time with my kids, and I tell people all the time, the guy, we talked about this earlier a little bit, the guy that doesn't get mentioned, I don't think, for the greatest of all time as much as Kareem. I mean, I look at Kareem, and here's what I say too, Robert. I say, Kareem played, 4 years of college. And he played 20 years in the NBA. Now, he could have potentially played 24 if he would have been in the pros as a 18 or 19-year-old like LeBron did, like Kobe did. He played 4 years of college and 20 years on top of that. That's a lot of basketball. Yeah. The greatest college basketball of all time, period. End of story. We don't even have to, we don't need to argue about that one. Then in the NBA, you go through the 19 years as an all-star or whatever it was and, all the things like that. And he became the all-time leading scorer with a shot that no one else ever could replicate, the sky hook. I mean, and so sometimes, do you feel I'm out to lunch when I say Kareem? He's got to be in the discussion, Robert. Come on.
No, he definitely in the discussion. For me, I would like to say let's take all of Kareem's threes out of his scoring title and take all LeBron threes out of his scoring title and see where they are. And that's what people got to understand, that he was shooting jump hooks. He was, back then where they can knock you out. Think about it. You hit LeBron, you get tossed. You can hit Kareem and knock him out, and you just getting upset. And so it was a little different type of game. And people say, well, if he played in this era, he couldn't have played. Yes, he could have. Yeah. That's the one great thing about great athletes. They can adapt to whatever situation they're in. Mm-hmm. I think for me, you look at the body of work Kareem did, and think about it. If he played his freshman year in college, he'd have probably won 4 national championships. Mm-hmm. He wasn't allowed to play as a freshman. Mm-hmm. Then he won all his championship, as a Laker. This dude was just, unbelievable. And I think a lot of that goes back. Let's say if we could go back in time and tell Kareem to be this jovial, loving guy and not this, this mysterious guy, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation. We'd probably say, oh, he's the greatest of all time. But due to the fact that we know nothing about him, nothing that he was, did yoga, kicked Bruce Lee in the chest, but we don't really know much about him, so we don't talk about him. So he is one, to me, one of the greatest to do it, and the greatest, one of the best of all time.
Period. End of discussion. Mm-hmm. Robert, in my view, I'm actually a little bit shocked with the whole Hall of Fame thing with you, and that I know it's coming. It's going to come. It's coming. I don't know when, but it's coming. And when you're a young guy growing up in Andalusia, Alabama, and it's going to happen for you. And I don't want, but how about thinking about that as you're a young guy and all of a sudden, because I do believe you're going to be you should already be a Hall of Famer, but think about that as a young guy, and you're going to stand on that stage one day, Robert.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That means a lot. For me, the only thing I ever thought about growing up as a young guy is being in the Olympics. That was one of my goals. And there's no lie. I thought by my senior year in college, I would be on that Olympic team. But unfortunately, they decided to take a bunch of bums called a dream team. So, that was the only goal. But so, you divert from that and think, just go out and play basketball. And for me, I'd say this and people get mad at me for saying this. The Hall of Fame don't really mean crap to me. It would mean more to my family than me because it's acknowledging, the career I had and what people forget about the Hall of Fame. It's called the Hall of Fame of Basketball. It's not called the NBA Hall of Fame. You think about what I was able to do in high school, what I was able to do in college. Think about it. National Player of the Year in Alabama, Academic Player of the Year in Alabama, won the SEC 3 times, all academic SEC, all, SEC. It's so many accolades that I gotten throughout my career that I think people kind of misplace because they think, oh, you only average, 11 points, 9 points, whatever it is in the NBA. Dude, I got the job done. I made the people around me better, which is what great basketball players do. And if I don't go in the hall, I don't really care because I got something that, let me see, only maybe 3 Hall of Famers have that I don't have. That's 7 NBA championships. So it is what it is. It's a team sport at the end of the day. It's not singles tennis. It's a team sport, and I've won 7 chips. So it is what it is.
Robert, you've always been about winning. And everybody that knows you and around the league, you've never, ever been about yourself. And you've just always been a winner. You're just a winner. And you'll always be remembered as that. You played on winning teams, but you were a big part of why they won. And I think for, as an athlete, that's the greatest compliment you can give any player. And that's what you've always been about, period. And what it takes to win, you've done it.
Here's a funny story. I don't know if Wimp even knows this story or you probably don't remember it. It was a point where, since you went to Alabama when you played for him, where I wasn't getting any touches and I was freaking pissed, right? I yelled at everybody. So James got in trouble for something. So he had an injury, so he had to sit out. And then I had my career high was 30 points or 32 points. And we lost. And I was like, I was happy that I got 32, but then I was like, you fucking lost, excuse my language. I'm like, this ain't how you do it. Even though that's the one moment where it made me realize it ain't about me. It's about we. I was pissed at Spree. I was pissed at Jason. I was pissed at all these potential future pros where I wasn't getting the touches that I thought I deserved. I ended up, they kept feeding me. I had my buckets, but we lost the game. And from that moment on, I never complained about touches again. So for me, I realized that it's about winning. It ain't about if you're getting your numbers. It's about winning.
Well, Robert, that's what you've always been about. And I've just always been proud, man. I'm proud of you. And I'm proud of what – and it's not just you make big shots here and there in the NBA, but it's just who you are, your character. And I think that's why you will be a Hall of Famer. I do believe that. So anyway, man. Thank you. Thank you for coming on today, and it was fun to talk to you and go back and reminisce a little bit. And you got a son that's playing at UCLA now, so we'll all get to watch him a little bit. And
it'll be fun.
I know you got to be proud for that too. So,
yeah. Hey, we should have did this yesterday and have Wimp on here since yesterday was his birthday.
Oh, that's right, and I forgot to call him. I got to call him, so I'm glad you reminded me. So I will. Well, anyway, Robert Horry, thank you so much, and I'm sure we'll visit soon. Thank you, man.
All right, Mark. Thank you, brother.